Japanese bond market has blown up. The U.S. bond market is blown up. The Epstein and Trump thing is blowing up. We're in Never Never Land. We're in a place the world has never been before. And if you think you go from that kind of massive instability, it's exactly the opposite. So my prediction is that between now and October, we're going to have a massive crash.
And welcome to another edition of Triangle Investor Interviews. I'm your host, Lucian Valkovic, and before I announce my guest, just a reminder of a disclaimer. This interview and all my interviews are not a recommendation to buy or sell any shares, products, or services. Always do your due diligence and consult with your financial advisor. My guest today is Bob Moriarty, founder of 321gold.com and a trusted voice in resource investing. Somebody that I really enjoyed listening to. Bob, great to have you back. I really enjoyed our previous discussion. Welcome back, sir.
Well, it's a real pleasure. And I'm quite willing to mention, we had a few technical sags, but we're back reconnected, and it's a pleasure to see you.
Thank you very much. Bob, there are a lot of things to cover with you, but I would like maybe to start with, let's say, market predictions. You've been known for spotting market trends early. What's the one market signal most investors are ignoring right now, and why should they pay attention?
That's a really good question. I'm a contrarian. Okay, that goes back as far as 1968. I was in Vietnam. I was looking around at how much stuff cost, and I thought, wait a minute, this has to be bad for the dollar. So I am always a contrarian. I'm always looking for signals that say things are about to change. If you look at all of the numbers of the stock market, we are in a bubble. The world is functionally bankrupt. The next move is not going to be moving up, it's going to be moving down. We are on the verge of total chaos and nobody sees it. But when every measure of the stock market is at all-time highs, how many snowflakes does it take to cause an avalanche? One. Okay. When the conditions are correct and the temperature is there and the moisture is there and the snowpack is there, one snowflake starts an avalanche. The conditions for a market crash are here. Because all of this stuff, I don't know what the market did yesterday. I think it was up 500 points. Okay. The Japanese bond market is blown up. The U.S. bond market is blown up. The Epstein and Trump thing is blowing up. We're in Never Never Land. We're in a place the world has never been before. And if you think you go from that kind of massive instability, it's exactly the opposite. So my prediction is that between now and October, we're going to have a massive crash. It could be caused by a war in Ukraine between NATO and Russia. Could be caused by a war in Israel and Iran. There's so many dangerous things happening now. It's a time to be exceptionally conservative. Another perfect example would be Bitcoin. Okay, it's hitting record highs. Now, Bitcoin is an electronic beanie baby. It is 98% speculation. It is 2% utility, and it's a $4 trillion market. So all of the pieces are in play for devastation that we have never seen before in history.
Yeah, let's hope that you are wrong. But You could be probably right. Let's talk gold and yeah, let's talk gold and silver in those kind of environment. What's driving the current trends in precious metals, and where do you see them heading in the next 12 months?
uh, again, being a contrarian, the metals that are performing the best right now are platinum and silver. And in relative terms, they are the cheapest. So that's what I would be buying now. Gold had a run up to 3,500 in April. It was 3,450 or something like that yesterday. It almost touched it again. I think we could touch another record high in gold shortly. From a seasonal point of view, the strongest gold market is from August to December. And from a seasonal point of view, the strongest silver market is from the 1st of September. I think, given the geopolitical events, given the economic events, I think that gold and silver are going to go a lot higher. And they're going to go higher because the United States and their actions of Donald Trump are driving people away from the US dollar. And the US dollar is the mainstay of the world's economy.
That's a good point. You mentioned geopolitical risks. You often connect global events to market movements. So, Bob, what's the most unreported geopolitical issue that could disrupt financial markets?
World War III. A lot of people are saying we're in World War III now, and I certainly believe that's true. Let me read something to you. This came out this week from President Xi of China. He says China and Russia are not building an alliance. We're building a new global reality. The West must either adapt or disappear. The West wants others to live in perpetual poverty so their banks remain rich. We do not seek to rule the world, only to liberate it from those who believe they own it. Now, I don't know if I've mentioned this to you in the past, but if you've paid attention to my interviews, I've said it many times to many other people, and I'm one of the very few people talking about it. There is a conflict going on right now between the debt-based system of the West and the resource-based system of the East and South. China and Russia are not trying to destroy the dollar. Donald Trump and the Republicans and the Democrats are the ones destroying the dollar. NATO and the US stealing $300 billion from Russia. Okay. Why would you trust anything the US or NATO says? And the answer is people can't trust them. They're going to gold, silver, and platinum as a reaction to the actions of the West. Now, the day after President Xi made those comments, a Russian commentator made very similar comments, and there is no discussion in the West about this conflict that I absolutely believe is going on, and the West is losing. But China and Russia and Iran absolutely understand it. And I'm going to tell you, we are in the greatest transition in world history going back to 1492. Okay, 1492, Columbus discovers the Bahamas, and all of a sudden the world changed. The world is changing. Very few people in the West understand it. There are massive changes ahead, and many of them are going to be exceptionally dangerous. So it is a time to be conservative. I own gold, silver, and platinum not as an investment. I own gold, silver, and platinum as an insurance policy against financial chaos. Now, I was telling people to buy gold, silver, and platinum 25 years ago. Okay. It's late in the game to be buying gold. It is 100 times higher than it was when I bought my first ounce of gold. Silver has been on a tear lately. Platinum is up 50% in 2 months. So people are starting to recognize how dangerous the financial situation is. And I hate to see people buying gold at 3,500. However, it's safer than owning treasuries.
Let's say you are right, Bob, about the global economic reset. What do you think? How would that reset look in a practical terms?
It's a good question, but an honest answer has to be I don't know. We have so many black swans circling that trying to predict which one will shit first is almost impossible to do. Anyone who says, I know what the future is going to look like, is full of shit. Okay, it's that simple. So many variables, and there are so many dangerous things going on. Israel has made an absolute commitment that they're going to reattack Iran. Iran had said, okay, we're ready for it. We've destroyed 40% of Israel, so we'll destroy the rest of it. The Hutus have shown that they can still attack Israel. Hamas has not been defeated. Israel is bombing the crap out of the guys who were their allies in Syria a week ago. We're in Never Never Land. We're in a place we're so far off the map. Nobody has ever been here before. Now, I can talk about it in global terms and say the debt-based system of the West is collapsing through utter bankruptcy. However, how that's going to play out, I don't know. I couldn't give you an honest answer.
Sure, sure. You give me an answer, and I respect that. Bob, I would like to hear your take on inflation versus deflation. The inflation deflation debate rages on. Which side are you on, and what evidence back your stance?
Who is the top investor in the world?
That's a pretty hard question.
No, it's an easy question. I'm talking about investor. I'm not talking about who is the wealthiest. I'm talking about who has made the best investments.
Help me.
Warren Buffett.
Oh, you mean Warren? Okay, I thought it was somebody else. Okay, sorry.
No, Warren Buffett. It's that simple. Now, the really interesting thing is, what did Warren Buffett bet on 40 years ago? Inflation. Okay. The really interesting thing is everybody thinks that Warren Buffett is a genius. I don't think he's a genius. I think he understands history and he knows governments always inflate their currencies until they crash. But when they crash, you go from inflation into deflation. So right now we're going through inflation. It's far worse than any of the government numbers say. We are going to have deflation because money is going to simply disappear. What people think of money, they're going to look at it one day and say, this isn't money. This is just a piece of paper. So we're going to have inflation. It's worse than anybody in the United States wants to admit. Donald Trump is an economic illiterate. And all of these things that he's doing, like trying to control interest rates, are having exactly the opposite effect of what he wants. But candidly, is the president of the United States in charge of determining what the name of a football team should be? Trump thinks he is. Okay. Is the president of the United States, what part of the Constitution has to do with the president determining tariffs? None. Okay. We've got a presidency out of control in a political system out of control, and it's just one more measure of this debt-based system collapsing. We are going to go into more and more and more chaos. Do you understand the concept of entropy? Okay, if you fire a rifle, the actions of the bullet, just as it comes out of the barrel, are very predictable. But if you go down range 500 meters, the action of the bullet is no longer predictable. That's called entropy. As time passes, chaos increases. And that's exactly where we are. We're never land. We've got a presidency out of control. We've got Israel that literally owns Congress, the Senate. We've got a war going on in Ukraine. How is NATO better off by destroying Russia? And let's not talk about who the good guys are and the bad guys are. That has nothing to do with anything. How is NATO better off by destroying Russia? They're not. Okay. How is the United States better off? They're not. I mean, Donald Trump just came out and announced a new weapons program to send to Ukraine to fight a war that is really a civil war that was lost years ago. And his thesis is, we're not really sending weapons. We're sending weapons that the Europeans are paying for. Well, the Europeans are broke. Okay, so how are the Europeans going to spend 5% of their budget on military? They're not going to. We have, across the world, 90% of the people running countries in the world are total idiots. I'm convinced they're all on coke. I think they're stupid. And it's astonishing to me. They do so many things that are self-destructive. Now, for people who don't like China and people who don't like Iran and people who don't like Putin, what I would highly suggest is, why don't you go listen to them speak? Because these are rational players with very real grievances, and they're saying, hey, we don't like people attacking us. Hey, we don't want a nuclear armed enemy on our doorstep. Hey, we want to be able to compete fairly in the world. This is what these guys are saying, but nobody listens to them. And they should be listening to them, because these are the greatest leaders in the world today, and they're going to be the greatest leaders in the world 5 to 10 years from now. So when Donald Trump and Macron and Metz and Starmer have all disappeared into Neverland, Putin's legacy and Lavrov's legacy and Xi's legacy are still going to be around.
Yeah, let me get back to, you mentioned Bitcoin in previous conversation. Cryptocurrencies have been a hot topic. Are they a legitimate hedge against fiat currency risk, or do you believe they are a speculative bubble waiting to burst?
They are electronic beanie babies. The difference between Bitcoin and a beanie baby was, at the end of the day, you could hold the beanie baby in your hand and you had a 79-cent stuffed toy your grandkids might enjoy. On the other hand, Bitcoin is an imaginary investment. It is a speculation. There is no utility value to it whatsoever. And people say, well, we're making all this money, so it's a great investment. If you go back 2 years, 3 years, 5 years ago, there were a couple of very rational reasons for owning Bitcoin. You could cheat on your taxes. You could buy drugs. There were all kinds of benefits to Bitcoin. They don't even talk about that anymore, okay? Because those were imaginary benefits. The computers that exist today can break the code of Bitcoin. So it's like synthetic diamonds, okay? You can think diamonds are absolutely magnificent. The synthetic diamonds are better than the real diamonds because they don't have any flaws. But at the end of the day, they're pieces of carbon, and it's an imaginary market. People will say they've made money in Bitcoin, and people want to leap on that. Do you happen to remember a couple of months ago, someone announced the Chinese new chip that was superior to NVIDIA. Now, everybody has forgotten this. The Chinese announced that chip in December. And then somebody who is in the industry did some research into the chip and said, hey, this chip costs 3% of what the NVIDIA chip costs, but it's much more effective. So he released an article, and NVIDIA plunged more than any stock in history the next day. And because I've got a friend that owns XRP, XRP was down 40% in one day. So everybody that was hedged and long got wiped out. And then people realized, wait a minute, this guy's writing about a chip that the Chinese announced in December. Okay, so there's no reason to panic whatsoever. So XRP was down 40% in one day, and then it was up 30% the next day. That is not the definition of a rational investment. You cannot have those kind of moves. So everybody that was long Bitcoin lost on one day, and everybody that was short Bitcoin lost the next day. That's not an investment. It's not even a speculation. It's never land. Okay, it's total insanity. At the end of the day, Bitcoin is going to achieve its real value, and its real value is zero. It is an imaginary investment.
Yeah, that brings me to next question about your contrarian view. You are known for going against the grain. What's the widely accepted financial narrative today that you believe is completely wrong?
Buy the dip. Okay, we got the stock market at record highs. We got the NASDAQ at record highs. We've got Bitcoin at record highs. And people are saying every time it goes down, you should buy. If you believe the currencies are going to be absolutely destroyed tomorrow, maybe that will be true. They're going to be destroyed. They're just not going to be destroyed tomorrow.
Okay, fair enough. Bob, resource sector, with energy and mining stocks often in focus, which undervalued resource sector do you think is poised for a breakout and why?
Everything that you could hold in your hand and drop on your foot, and it hurts. The alternative is paper assets that have been issued by countries run by sociopaths that are disappearing in value overnight, or real assets. It's a question of imaginary assets over real assets. And if you just think about that, it's a pretty easy answer. Energy is quite cheap now. Commodities are quite cheap now. The precious metals stocks are at half of 1%, and historically it's been 3%, and it's been as high as 8%. If you want to make money, you want to buy what is cheap and you want to sell what is dear. And commodities are cheap, and gold's cheap, and silver is cheap, and Bitcoin is expensive. So that's a pretty easy choice.
Okay, Bob, final question. You've seen multiple market cycles in your career. What's the most valuable lesson you learned from the past booms and busts that investors should apply today?
You just hit the nail right on the head. All markets go in cycles. There is going to come a time that gold and silver peak. Now, we're not there. We're not even close to being there. But all markets go in cycles and all things change. What you have to do is you have to look at the behavior of other people. And if you could predict what people are doing and what they see as investments, if you will do exactly the opposite, you will make a lot of money.
Simple as that. right?
It is. Well, here's what's crazy, and I'm going to be critical of everybody in the industry, and I'm not being cynical about it. I'm being practical. Newsletter writers, politicians, and television preachers get successful by telling people what they want to hear. Okay, they don't give a shit if they're correct or not. We wouldn't dream of electing an honest politician. Okay, we know these television preachers, we know exactly what they're doing at night. They've been doing it forever. And we know that newsletter writers that tell people what they want to hear are lying. They'll be successful, but the readers are going to lose money. People have to learn for themselves. We're in the most dynamic period in world history. We're going to have the biggest changes people can possibly imagine. It's very predictable. I've been predicting it for years. I wrote a book about war, and on the last 3 pages of the book, I wrote about stuff, including the fall of Syria. Very predictable. I wrote the book 9 years ago. I said the banking system is going to fail. Of course, the banking system is going to fail. There is no other possible alternative. The world is awash in debt and it's functionally bankrupt. Okay, so things are going to change. Now, are they going to be better? Well, they could be worse for a while, but it's an enormous opportunity for people, but it's also the most dangerous environment in history.
You put it up very smart. Bob, how can people reach out to you?
Uh, I got 2 websites, 321gold.com and 321energy.com. I'm easy to get a hold of. I've written a dozen or so books. They're available on Lulu and Amazon. And to be quite candid, my books are very good and very funny. And I highly suggest people look at them. And every article I've ever written is still on my website, so people can see what I was saying 20 years ago.
We will leave the link in the description of this video. And Bob, I want to thank you for coming to the show. Great chat as always. I always learn something from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There's so many interesting things going on. It's hard to be boring. I used to be bored. I'm not boring anymore. But thank you. It was a really great pleasure to share with you today.